My name is Isabella Cruz. I was 18 years old when I was murdered during a late-night gas station robbery. I can still feel the cool tile floor beneath me, slick with my own blood. The smell of gasoline hung in the air, mixed with that sharp, metallic tang of iron that made me want to gag. Somewhere nearby, a soda can hissed softly, leaking across the floor. The gunshot still rang in my ears, a hollow echo that seemed to vibrate through my chest. The man who shot me was gone, his tires screaming into the night. The clerk was sobbing behind the counter, his shaking hands pressing 911 into the phone. I tried to move, but my body refused. My lungs rattled with each shallow breath. The buzzing fluorescent light above me flickered once, twice, and I realized I might never see another sunrise. This can't be how my story ends, I thought. I had plans. I had a future. I wasn't supposed to die like this, alone on a gas station floor with strangers' voices fading in the distance. And then, everything went silent. The buzzing light froze mid-flicker. The sobbing clerk became a statue, mouth open, tears suspended on his cheek. Even the blood sliding across the tile seemed to stop midstream. Time itself had stopped. But death wasn't the end. What I saw next was about to terrify me far more than the man who killed me. Before that night, my life was painfully ordinary, the kind of life you never think could end in a headline. I was a first-generation college student, the first in my family to leave home and chase a degree. My parents came to Texas from Mexico with nothing but faith and grit, and I carried their dreams with me like a second skin. I had just started my first semester of nursing school, juggling anatomy textbooks by day and greasy diner shifts by night. It wasn't glamorous, but it mattered. Every paycheck I earned went straight to tuition, books, and helping out at home. My little brother Miguel, 14, stubborn as ever, would wait up for me after my shifts, sitting on the couch with his Xbox controller in his lap just to ask me if I'd brought him fries. I loved those quiet nights, even when my feet ached and my hair smelled like coffee and fryer oil. We'd sit together in the dark, talking about nothing and everything. I wanted him to see me working hard so he'd know he could do it too. That night had started like any other, late shift, tired feet, too much caffeine. I almost went straight home. Almost. But the fridge was empty, and I thought Miguel deserved a late-night snack. Just a quick run to the gas station. 5 minutes, in and out. It was such a small choice, the kind you don't even think about twice. And that choice changed everything. The gas station sat on the corner of a nearly empty intersection, its flickering neon sign buzzing like an insect against the dark Texas sky. I parked under the harsh glow of a single light and stepped out into the quiet. The air smelled like gasoline and dust. Somewhere in the distance, a lone semi rumbled down the highway. Inside, the place felt half asleep, humming fluorescent lights overhead, shelves stacked with candy bars, the faint sound of a late-night country station drifting from a crackling radio. The cashier nodded at me without looking up from his phone. I grabbed a bag of chips and a bottle of orange soda. Nothing special. Just a normal, forgettable stop. The door chimed behind me, too fast, too loud. 2 figures rushed in, masked, moving like they'd been wound too tight. One of them shouted something, his voice high-pitched, panicked. I couldn't even make out the words. The other man had a gun, the barrel gleaming under the fluorescent light. I froze. The bottle slipped from my hand, thudding softly onto the floor. The chips fell next, scattering at my feet. Hands up, the man screamed. His voice cracked as if he was yelling more at himself than at us. I raised my hands slowly, heart hammering. The cashier, pale and trembling, reached under the counter. "Don't do it," the gunman shrieked. Everything exploded at once. A deafening bang tore through the quiet store. The window behind me shattered, spraying glass across the tile. My ears rang so loudly I couldn't tell if I was screaming. Then came the pain. A white-hot punch in my side that stole my breath. I staggered backward, clutching my ribs. My hand came away slick and red. The robbers bolted. Tires screeched outside as they sped into the night. The radio kept playing, absurdly calm, a steel guitar whining in the background. The cashier vaulted over the counter and knelt beside me. His hands pressed against the wound, his voice frantic, calling my name though he didn't even know me. My vision blurred. The buzzing lights above me smeared into glowing halos. Every sound stretched into slow motion, the clerk's panicked breathing, my own shallow gasps, the distant wail of a siren somewhere down the road. And then, just as suddenly, it all stopped. The clerk froze mid-shout, his mouth open, eyes wide. The siren's cry cut off mid-note. The broken shards of glass hung suspended in the air like tiny stars. Even my own blood seemed to hover above the floor in droplets. Time itself had stopped. And I wasn't afraid anymore. At first, I thought I was hallucinating, some cruel trick of my brain shutting down. But then I saw her. Me. My body lay on the cold tile, eyes half open, blood soaking through my shirt. The clerk's hands were still pressed against the wound, frozen there like a statue. I should have panicked. I should have screamed. But all I felt was stillness. A strange calm washed over me, a silence so deep it rang louder than the gunshot ever had. I felt myself rising, weightless, as though invisible hands were gently lifting me out of my skin. Soon, I was floating near the ceiling, looking down at the entire scene from above, the toppled bottle of soda, the shattered glass, the blinking red light of the silent alarm. Outside, through the window, the night sky was perfectly still, the stars frozen mid-twinkle. Then came the pull. It was soft at first, like a breeze on the back of my neck. Then stronger, insistent. I felt it not with my body but somewhere deeper, a tug in my soul. The gas station shrank beneath me until it was no bigger than a toy set. The roof melted away, revealing the street, the nearby houses, the empty stretch of road. Then the world itself seemed to fold and fade, like a photograph curling in on itself. I was moving fast now, but not falling. Being carried. A tunnel opened before me, but it wasn't dark. It glowed with a metallic gold light, streaked with rivers of living brightness that pulsed as though they were alive. The walls shimmered and swirled, drawing me in like a tide. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt a strange mix of awe and dread, as though I was being taken somewhere magnificent, but there would be no turning back. And somewhere deep inside, I knew. This was the beginning of something I could never unsee. The tunnel opened up into a place that had no walls, no floor, no ceiling, only light. But it wasn't the blinding, sterile kind of light I'd seen in hospital rooms. This light felt alive, as if it was breathing all around me. It shimmered and moved like a great ocean of gold and fire, each ripple humming with music I couldn't hear but somehow felt deep in my chest. And then I saw him. Not like the pictures I'd seen in Sunday school. No flowing robes. No pale, soft hands. He was like a storm of light and love wearing human shape. His form was both solid and too bright to look at, as though he was made of lightning wrapped in something gentler. The air itself seemed to bow toward him. I didn't need anyone to tell me who he was. My soul knew before my mind caught up. Jesus. The moment his gaze met mine, every thought I had scattered like leaves in a windstorm. It was as if he looked through me, not just at me, peeling back every layer of who I was. Every memory, every lie I'd told, every secret I'd buried was suddenly open and exposed before him. For a heartbeat, I felt naked, like I should shrink back or cover myself. But there was no shame here. His eyes held no accusation, only a kind of fierce, steady love that made me ache. It was overwhelming. I began to weep, not from fear, but from the unbearable relief of being fully known. The weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying, the worry about money, the guilt over my last fight with my mom, the constant, gnawing pressure to make my family proud, it all slid off me like heavy chains. I felt lighter than air, like every cell of me was being rebuilt, made clean. Jesus didn't speak with his mouth, but his voice filled me completely. It wasn't a sound but a knowing, a perfect clarity that bloomed inside me like light flooding a dark room. "My beloved," his voice said, though the words were more like a melody I remembered from a dream. "You were never unseen. You were never abandoned." Those words shattered something in me. I cried harder, but the tears didn't sting. Each one felt like it was washing something bitter out of my soul. And in his presence, I realized I wasn't just alive again. For the first time in my life, I was truly awake. The light around us shifted without moving. I wasn't carried anywhere, yet suddenly I was standing inside someone else's story, like stepping through a window and finding myself in the middle of a life I had never lived. I saw a boy sitting on a stained carpet in a one-bedroom apartment. A TV blared cartoons too loud for midnight. His father lay face down on the couch, one arm dangling, a plastic lighter clenched in his fist. The boy's knees were drawn to his chest. He stared at the door as if it could suddenly learn how to love him and walk back in. He learned to make his own dinners at 7. He learned to lie to teachers at 8. He learned not to cry at 9. By 10, he'd memorized which drawer his father kept the powder in and which days the rage came like weather, sudden and punishing and no one's fault and everyone's fault. On those nights the boy hid in the hallway closet, breathing through the sleeve of his shirt to drown out the sour chemical smell that soaked the apartment. At 11 he was big enough to stop some of the blows. At 12 he wasn't big enough anymore. At 13, a group of older kids called him out behind the basketball courts. They taught him to wrap a bandana around his face, to lean into pain so it wouldn't feel like defeat. They pressed a knife into his palm and said, "Now you belong somewhere." He believed them. For the first time, belonging felt easier than breathing. But chances came, small doors that opened like mercy and then waited. I saw a middle school coach, tired and stubborn, who kept him after practice, teaching him footwork and patience. "You've got something," the coach said, firm and hopeful. The boy shrugged, laughed it off, then stopped showing up. The door swung closed. I saw a probation officer who treated him like a person and not a number. "You can still walk out of this," she said, sliding a flyer for an apprentice program across the table. He left it on the bus. Another door shut. I saw a stranger near a bus stop, a woman in a red coat with groceries in her arms. She watched him pace, jaw tight, eyes broken. She stepped forward like she'd been sent. "Can I pray for you?" The boy blinked, confused by the sound of his name on a stranger's lips. "God sees you." He nodded like he'd heard static on a radio, then stepped back, shaking his head. He was 15. He had places to be. The door eased closed without a sound. He kept choosing the gravity that pulled him down. The choices grew heavier, like wet clothes that never dried. The first time he held a gun, his hands trembled. The second time, they didn't. By 17, he could slide into the night and feel nothing at all. I watched him the night our paths crossed. He hadn't planned on killing anyone. He wanted quick cash and a way to quiet the noise in his chest. But panic is a fuse, and fear is a match. In the screaming mess of a moment, he squeezed the trigger and set his life on fire. I felt pity rise in me like a tide. Not agreement. Not excuse. Just the ache of a story that kept offering a hand, and a boy who kept pulling away. The scene folded inward, and then we were standing in the same ocean of light where I had first seen Jesus. The man, no longer a boy, stood there, blinking like he had been dragged out of a dark theater into noonday sun. He raised an arm to shield his face, but you can't block truth with your hands. The light didn't burn him, it revealed him. It poured through him like water through a net, lighting up every hidden room, every cupboard he'd nailed shut from the inside. The bravado peeled away. The excuses slid off like paint in a storm. His eyes darted, searching for a corner to hide in. There weren't any. He tried to speak, but the words curdled before they formed. What came out instead was a raw sound, a howl, the voice of someone who had been running from home so long he'd forgotten what home looked like. No, he rasped, backing away from the radiance that wanted him more than he wanted himself. No, no, no. Shadows moved, not like smoke, but like intentions with weight. They gathered at the edges of the light, patient and certain. I recognized them. The whispers I'd seen around him as a boy, the lies that had sounded like friends, stepped forward now like creditors. They didn't shove him. They didn't need to. He recoiled from the light and stumbled toward them, choosing them again because choosing is a habit and habits become chains. They wrapped themselves around him, and the sound that came next will live inside me forever. It sounded like the ocean mourning, as if creation itself grieved the loss of a son it had been singing to since his first breath. I looked at Jesus. He wasn't surprised. He wasn't angry. His face held a sorrow so deep it made the stars feel small. Tears gathered and fell, no drama, no spectacle. Love grieving what love could not force. And I understood, no one threw him away. He walked away. The door had always been open, but he had trained his feet to run in the other direction. The light shifted again, and I was standing in the middle of a street I recognized and didn't recognize. Night pressed down like a lid. A dumpster burned at the corner, painting the buildings in violent orange. A storefront lay shattered, glass like ice on the sidewalk. People surged and screamed, faces hidden by masks, hands raised not in worship but in rage. I tasted smoke and felt the heat of anger as if it were a weather system no one could escape. The vision jumped. A political rally, flags whipping, slogans blaring. It started with speeches and ended with fists. A bottle arced through the air and broke against a barricade. The crowd heaved like a living thing, and in the middle of it I saw shapes that were not human bending close to human ears, whispering. The words weren't audible, but I saw their effect, pupils narrowing, shoulders squaring, hearts hardening. Us and them. Right and wrath. The whispers were architecture, constructing walls faster than anyone could tear them down. Another jump. Living rooms across the country flickered with blue light. Parents shouted at screens while their children watched their faces, memorizing the choreography of contempt. In kitchens, couples weaponized statistics. In bedrooms, teenagers scrolled past ruin with numb thumbs, baptized by outrage before they learned how to pray. I saw classrooms where history was sharpened into knives. I saw churches splitting like dry wood. Pulpits turned into platforms, altars into stages. People who loved the same Savior glared at each other across aisles as if Christ had chosen a side and it was theirs alone. The same shadows I had seen around my killer threaded through sanctuaries and meeting halls, delighted. They didn't need to break anything, the people were doing it for them. Then the vision drew me up to a higher vantage, cities like circuits, highways like veins, the whole nation a body thrumming with fever. Wherever mercy thinned, darkness pooled. Wherever forgiveness was traded for the brief thrill of being right, I watched the future lean closer like a storm cloud. Lord, I whispered, not with my mouth but with my soul, how do we stop this? Jesus stood beside me, not towering above the nation but holding it, somehow, as if the geography itself rested in his palms. His voice filled the space, not loud, not soft, just final. This is not just the future, he said. This is already beginning. The words rang like a bell struck once and left to tremble. He turned his gaze on the streets, the homes, the churches. A nation does not crumble all at once, he said. It crumbles one choice at a time. The heart of a country is the sum of its people's hearts. When bitterness is nursed, it becomes doctrine. When contempt is preached, it becomes culture. When mercy is refused, it becomes law. The firelight in the streets flickered and went out. The vision dimmed until only his face remained clear to me, luminous and sorrowful and more determined than the darkness. And I knew with a certainty that outlived the scene, the same door that had stood open for my killer still stood open for us. But doors don't drag you through. You have to choose to walk. When the last vision faded, I turned back to Jesus, desperate for him to speak hope over what I had just seen. My soul ached with the weight of it. "Please," I whispered, my voice shaking even though my lips never moved. "Let me stay here. Don't send me back. It's too heavy. That world is too dark. I don't want to go back to the pain." For the first time, I saw a faint smile in his eyes, not one of amusement, but of deep, patient love. "Little one," his voice filled me like warm water filling an empty glass, "your story is not finished." I shook my head. "But I'm afraid." "You must warn them," he said gently, but with a strength that left no room for argument. "Tell them what you saw. Tell them that mercy is still being offered, even now. Tell them the time is shorter than they think." His presence wrapped around me like a father holding a child who doesn't want to let go. "I will not leave you," he said. "But you cannot stay. What you carry is not for you. It is for them." I felt something hard inside me shift, like a door clicking open. The fear didn't leave, but it was joined by something fiercer, purpose. I nodded through my tears. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll go." His light grew brighter, filling everything until it swallowed me whole. The warmth I had clung to was ripped away, replaced by weight, by gravity, by pain, and then I was falling. I slammed back into my body like being dropped from the sky. My chest convulsed, dragging in air like it was fire. "Pulse! We've got a pulse," someone shouted. Blinding lights cut across my vision. Hands were everywhere, pressing, lifting, shouting commands I couldn't follow. Pain tore through me, sharp and electric. My side burned where the bullet had passed through. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was a wet gasp. I felt the gurney jolt as they wheeled me toward the ambulance. The world was loud again, sirens, tires squealing, EMTs calling vitals. The peaceful silence of that other place was gone, and the noise of the earth pressed in like a storm. Hours later, after surgery and blinking monitors and voices fading in and out, I woke to hushed disbelief. "She shouldn't be here," one doctor murmured, thinking I was asleep. "No major organ damage. No neurological deficits. Statistically, this is impossible." But I was there. Breathing. Alive. And I knew why. I had been sent back. Not to survive, but to speak. I'm telling you this because it wasn't just for me. If you hate someone right now, if you can't even hear their name without feeling that tight knot in your chest, you need to understand what I saw. That hate, that bitterness, that quiet little thought that whispers they don't deserve mercy, it's the same poison I saw devouring my killer's soul. I know what he did to me. I know what it cost my family. And yet, standing in the presence of Jesus, I couldn't cling to my anger. It burned away like smoke because there was no room for it where I stood. But here, in this world, you still have a choice. You have a chance to forgive before it's too late. To drop the grudge you've been carrying like armor. To pray for the person who hurt you, even if your voice shakes when you do it. Every time you choose mercy, you break a chain. Every time you choose forgiveness, you slam the door on those whispers that want you to stay angry forever. I was sent back to tell you this: you are not powerless. You can choose life. You can choose light. Please don't wait until it's too late to make that choice. One day, the same light that revealed my killer's soul will shine on yours. Every hidden thought, every secret bitterness, every moment you refused grace, it will all stand uncovered in that light. There will be no excuses left. No slogans. No justifications. Just the truth, burning clean and bright. When that day comes, when that light falls on you, will you run toward it, or will you turn away? Because I promise you this, the choice isn't made on that day. It's being made right now.